And that's the opportunity for businesses to think differently, to also start exploring from a product provider, how do I become an end-to-end extended product to a service providers and stuff like that.
Hello and welcome to the Retail Podcast. Now, we're in the series of meetings that should have happened at NRF that didn't, just because of the sheer scale of NRF. I'm joined by Rahul Mahajan, who is Global CTO Vice President at, is it Nagarro? Is that right?
Nagarro.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. I'm winning so far, and a thumbs up. So we're going to have a general discussion, but I'm going to learn as much as you are, because sometimes I'll get an invite saying, hey, Nagarro are doing this, and this in AI. I think that's super interesting. And I'll say, let's get them on the show to have a chat. So Rahul, so if you don't mind, tell us, why don't we start with you? What do you do at Nagarro? And were you at NRF, by the way?
Yes. So maybe I spend a minute about Nagarro. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, and then I'll absolutely come back to the question if that's okay, Alex.
Sure. Perfect.
So Nagarro is a global digital engineering organization, 18,000 people, and a €1 billion revenue company listed in Frankfurt. We are in the business where clients perceive us for complex engineering, and especially clients love to work with us across industry. We are fairly diversified. So we work with surely retail, it's a big part of what we do, but we also work with travel, banking, and so on. Clients love to work with Nagarro when it comes to complex engineering, when it comes to modern transformation, fast-moving problems, agile, fast-moving stuff. So we are perceived to be a company to go with, one which is cool in terms of its engineering, its culture, and its fast-moving ways of working on complex problems. So that's a little bit about a quick thing about Nagarro. And back to the stuff in NRF, we had a very interesting event. We got to meet some amazing industry leaders across the spectrum, retail, digital transformation, consumer experiences. This is a big part of what we do. Also, to briefly introduce myself, I'm involved in the organization as a technology leader in a global CTO capacity. Also, and hence I get to work with some amazing clients, tier 1 clients, all kinds of clients, but also I'm responsible from a business perspective for profit and loss with some amazing strategic clients. So I run the digital transformation portfolio across the organization as an horizontal. And I get to work with some amazing retailers, some amazing fashion companies, commerce companies, banking companies, automobile companies, CPG companies. And there's always amazing stuff to learn from all of these industries. Given the rate that these industries are moving is different. So there's always stuff to learn. So that's a quick introduction about the company, about me individually. 15 odd patents. A lot of this is in the topics that we could be of our interest today in retail, in personalization, data, and in marketing and statistics around sales and stuff. And this is a reflection of how, as a company, from an innovation perspective, where are we moving? What kind of solutions are we creating? In fact, we just filed a provisional application in India. We'll talk about it around humanizing personalization. This was also a big theme for us in NRF. We were there talking about how shifts in personalizations are happening. Humanizing the whole personalization aspect is a huge part of what AI today can deliver. This is also what certain part of work we do with some of our amazing tier 1 clients. I think with that, I'll give it back to you, Alex, for...
Well, keeping it simple, what's the number one outcome you feel you can help clients? Where can you drive them? Like, what are the, if I'm the CEO of whatever retailer, what outcome are you going to create for me?
Sure. It's a heavy question, but let me take one or two examples, and hopefully that should answer your question. So we are working with one of these amazing CPG companies in the larger beauty fashion space. An amazing company. They are working with us on the demand planning side, on the supply chain side, and the leadership came to us. The ecosystems has evolved. Companies are not just selling on retail outlets or not just selling on commerce. It's a fairly distributed ecosystem that companies today operate in. So for this CPG company, they have their own retail stores by brands. Some of the brands have their own stores. Some of the brands sell in third-party outlets like 7-Elevens and so on. They also sell through commerce. First-party commerce, but they also sell through marketplaces, which are big Amazons and eBays and some focused industry segment specific commerce players in different countries, but they also sell through third party retail e-commerce, and it's an amazing complex stuff when you talk to these clients. Now managing demand and making sure on supply chain side you have right amount of orders in this complex ecosystem is not trivial. Classically, companies would have gone to some big daddy softwares. I don't want to name anyone here, but there are established existing contemporary players. What Arrow came involved as and kind of now answering your question from a value perspective, how you can use today AI to kind of look into demand. Demand is an attribution of what promotions you are running. Demand is as an attribution to what historical sales and the classical stuff, purchase patterns and stuff like that. Demand also has drivers coming in all the way from competition. But now in case of marketplaces like Amazon's, suddenly there's a price drop by a competition, or there's a season coming and you see a spike in your sales, and their season changing. There are influencers talking about your products, about your skincare products, about your fashion products and those influencers messages change your demand. Now, in this kind of complex scenario, surely you can go and run a auto-regressive forecasting model and create a fancy dashboard and live with it. The problem is that the accuracy for this tier one company was fairly low, and hence there was a need of by SKU, by category. How can we look at demand in very unique ways? And that's where the promise with AI was that for every SKU, can we have a unique model? Can we have these factors dynamically picked in depending on what significance these factors have on specific categories and so on? So that's a big shift, a use case which nobody would have talked about like 3 years back because the channel complexity was not this complex. And trade planning was primarily limited to trade management. Largely the trade optimization, TPO was not tightly integrated into it. Even the dealer signals were kind of missing. But today, that's the opportunity. And it's not about just deploying some AI models. The another big opportunity, Alex, for us is how do we humanize, back to the NRF theme also, how do we humanize the consumption? Can we make demand planners talk to systems in natural languages? Can I go and talk to my system using generative AI? Hey, just tell me what all SKUs are aging in my larger region. And can AI come back with to me with a beautiful rendered widget? Here are top 5 products which are actually aging, and here are some trade promotion strategies that you can start considering all the way from BOCO to price discounts and stuff like that. And that's our opportunity. A classical contemporary system just cannot do this in near to real time. Now that's on the B2B and enterprise side. Let me shift my gears to consumer facing experiences. The promise again is, and then one of the stuff that we have recently filed a patent for also is on using generative AI to generate advisories. Two or three big trends that I'm observing in my leadership conversations with some of these big clients. One, it's not just about products anymore. Definition of products is changing. It's not just first party products. Clients want to consider their partner products, and not just products. Clients also want to consider the partner services. So goal is to get embedded into the lifestyle. Beyond transactions, can you get embedded into the lifestyle at an emotional level, at a humanizing level? So for example, if I'm buying an automobile and I want to customize it, given the terrain and given the vacation, can AI help me connect to my accessory partners, to my service partners, to my insurance partners and services, and create a very simple consumption view out of it? And that's the promise with the shifts around ecosystems, with the shift around services. How do we humanize this whole thing? And you cannot do this, Alex, without, for example, without having some of the new capabilities like agentic. In past, what we would have done is typically go to a service-based architecture, written some workflows. Today, if your ecosystems are getting plugged in, insurance provider is coming in, a service provider, a service provider at your doorstep is coming in. How do you write these workflows? You cannot write these workflows. You cannot wire these workflows. What you can rather do is today is go on agentic systems, use agentic systems, deploy these workflows in a way that they can in runtime learn and adapt and stitch these additional new services in a marketplace type of a pattern seamlessly. So suddenly, if you have a doorstep service provider coming to your door to provide some services, automatically those services get integrated into a workflow, and that workflow then gets converted to a humanized consumption format. And you cannot afford a downtime as a client, as a retailer, that let me take a downtime, let me integrate those services, let me write those workflows, go back and do the engineering for 3 months and come back. These providers are coming in on the fly. Now, can technology do it? That's the opportunity for all of us. And that's exactly the kind of engineering shifts, Alex, we are seeing with some of our amazing tier one clients. These are things we are pushing. For example, a pharmacy company in retail context, they just don't want to sell medicine anymore. They want to sell lifestyle services, which mean diet services, wellness services. And imagine these kinds of contexts where suddenly from a transactional product context, you shift to a lifestyle, emotional service provider in the larger ecosystem context. For this kind of a context, you need a very different architecture, very different kind of an AI, and hence of those things. Now, these are the values that we are promising, Alex, to your point, to the leadership of some of these organizations which are willing to go with us and become future ready before they get disrupted by an online marketplace or an online SaaS provider.
So, I mean, if we were going to break that down into its components, obviously you'll build a unique AI model for your client, because what comes across there is that your ability to execute, your engineering prowess is obviously what you're strong in. Where does the patents that you hold, or the patents that you've applied for, how does that come into this? What are you actually patenting? Is it the AI model itself? And then where does that AI model sit? Is it tied to, I don't know, Microsoft or ChatGPT or Anthropic? What can you just expand on that bit?
Sure. I'll be brief here because this gets super technical. But just to talk about it, there's amazing opportunity, Alex, from us for all of us, all of the engineering community and solutions and consulting providers to think differently. We went back to think of data structures from scratch because AI can't consume structured data, video data, multimodal data, and give you advisories. So, for example, if an influencer is giving some feedback on product, a good feedback, let's say, or a certain way you have to use the product or apply the product or around product related scenarios, how can you bring that stuff real time into your subsequent advisories, into loyalty and so on? Which means you need a different kind of data structure. We are heavily using knowledge graphs. Knowledge graphs has amazing promise. I'll keep moving because otherwise I'll keep speaking. So knowledge graphs is one big amazing kind of a promising thing we are exploring. Second, and a huge thing, we are vectorizing data at an amazing speed now. Data has been sitting classically inside structured databases or recently in NoSQL databases, big databases, but that's not something what languages can consume directly. Language needs a semantic substitution. So we are vectorizing the databases, we are writing new semantic layers. That's second big shift in the way we are now thinking of solution, because language has capability to talk to data. Language has capability to even talk to AI. Language has capability to talk to us as consumers. So it has all that. Uh, you can use language to go either ways, which means you need a strong semantic catalogs to complement your architecture. So that's point number two in terms of where new solutions will have novelty. Point number three, the governance. Now you need a big explainability around some big decisions happening in your demand planning or in terms of advisories. We need to go back, double click and see what model ran in, what version of data ran in, what kind of observability was it, who approved it, what data version, what lineage from a master data management perspective, and so on. Who had the access right on this kind of a data? And then you have all data privacy, which is GDPR and CCPA and India data protection and so on. So that's the third big opportunity around AI governance. By the way, it's not just about security and data privacy. How does AI even talk in a human-friendly format? There's a huge opportunity to make AI not talk like a computer agent, computational agent, but rather talk like how a marketing person will talk. For example, in beauty industry, a dry hair can be said as rough hair, dull hair, and so on. So brand and marketing talk in a certain way, but computational agents, they typically would just talk in standard languages. Now, how do you train the tone so that it speaks like how a brand would like to talk. So that's another part of the governance. And that's governance to me is the third big area of where novelties can be created. So imagine the amount of novelty opportunity that we have. And then last but not the least, you talked about Anthropic, LLMs, and from OpenAI. Clients today wants to build systems because innovation is happening, Alex, we all know, at amazing speed. In January, you could be seeing Gemini doing better. In February, it could be Anthropic doing better. In March, it could be again GPT doing better. And who knows, in April, some other company in some other country may be doing better. Clients, at least when I talk to them, they want to externalize their system so that there's a certain amount of interoperability. They can today use X, tomorrow they can try the same thing with Y provider and Z provider and so on. So externalization means you can't just use the core APIs and do stuff with them. You have to externalize the vectors, you have to externalize the governance, you have to do grounding in a way which is again common to all of these raw providers and so on. So in terms of creating novelties, this is huge. And then you don't get patent unless you don't bring in the application aspects on all of it. It cannot be a formula, right? So that takes me back to what kind of new application interfaces can you build with this kind of new, which I already touched in some ways. And that's the opportunity for businesses to think differently, to also start exploring from a product provider, how do I become an end-to-end extended product to a service providers and stuff like that. There are companies, big CPG companies, who are saying, we just don't want to be selling products. Rather, we want to get embedded as service provider into the consumer lifestyles at an emotional level. And you would have heard this from some amazing fashion companies, beauty companies, sports companies, and so on, Alex. But easier said than done. The engineering for this needs a very unique kind of an approach. And that's the opportunity for us to, from a novelty point of view.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Where can people find out more information, Rahul?
So absolutely, I'm always accessible on my LinkedIn, on my email ID, rahul.mahajan@nagarro.com. You can reach out to Nagarro websites, reach out to us, and then some of us are actively available in different events and so on. A lot of what I said, by the way, is there on our in our marketing materials and brochures. So we would be happy to talk to any of our interesting clients.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex, for the opportunity. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you for your time.